In the U.S. tonight, Donald Trump's legal woes are intensifying.
How do you feel, Mr. Trump? How do you feel?
Here you see the former president heading to a deposition today while the New York Attorney General's office, a deposition in which he invoked the Fifth Amendment, declining to answer questions in a civil inquiry into whether he and his company inflated the value of his properties and net worth to get better insurance and loan rates. The CBC's Katie Simpson is tracking the story for us. She's in Washington, of course, tonight. Hi, Katie. What more can you tell us about this inquiry and Trump pleading the Fifth?
Well, the deposition lasted roughly 4 hours, and according to a lawyer for Donald Trump who spoke with the New York Times, Donald Trump answered the question, his name. He read a statement into the record describing this as one of the greatest witch hunts, political witch hunts in history, and then invoked his Fifth Amendment rights, which is to not answer questions, as so to not self-incriminate. And then apparently, according to this report in the New York Times, he repeatedly said, same answer, same answer, same answer. Through 4 hours of questioning. There were some breaks in there. As you mentioned, Vashi, this is an investigation, a civil investigation into the long-term business practices of Donald Trump's real estate empire. His kids have been deposed as part of this ongoing investigation, and it's something that the Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James, has been focused on for quite some time. Trump lashed out at her quite extensively in a statement before he went into the deposition, criticizing her for her long pursuit and the long-standing pursuit on this issue in trying to get to the bottom of what is going on and whether there's going to be any sort of lawsuit. And so Donald Trump left just a short time ago. And again, just apparently, according to the New York Times, just said, same answer, same answer.
I have a different question for you. How are his allies, how are the former president's allies reacting to the legal woes, to everything that's happened in the past 48 hours? What are they saying today?
There is a lot of anger, particularly directed at the FBI. We knew that the ongoing investigation, the civil investigation, that is something that's been long-standing, that's sort of been hanging over Donald Trump. But what happened earlier this week, the police search warrant, the FBI search warrant executed at Mar-a-Lago, it has really unified Republicans who are demanding the FBI answer some questions. As is standard practice, it's an ongoing investigation, so the FBI isn't commenting. The FBI director was actually in Nebraska today, and he was asked by reporters, and he's like, as you can appreciate, I can't say anything about what's going on, but he did criticize those who are attacking FBI agents and law enforcement agents in the wake of what's gone on. But in the void of official information, we're seeing over the past few days, Donald Trump's allies have stepped up to fill that void with their own narrative. The latest, we're hearing from Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. It's bordering, or it's floating a conspiracy theory.
People distrust so much the government that we've gotten to the point where, for example, do I know that the boxes of material they took from Mar-a-Lago, that they won't put things in those boxes to entrap him? How do we know? Their lawyers weren't allowed to see the boxes go. They weren't categorized.
That's going to be a problem.
Thousands of documents were taken. Yeah, how do we know that they're going to be honest with us?
So, as you just heard from that clip, Senator Rand Paul, an elected member of Congress, is floating the idea that perhaps the FBI would plant something on Donald Trump, on his property, as a way to entrap him. So there's pressure on the FBI to say something. There's also questions about whether Donald Trump and his legal team should release the search warrant, whatever documents they have. NBC News is reporting that the Trump legal team does not have any plan to release it. A search warrant would list the alleged crimes that have allegedly taken place potentially, as well as the items that were sought after and seized on Monday.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Appreciate the updates as always. The CBC's Katie Simpson for us in Washington. Let's dig a little bit deeper on what all of this means for American politics. To help us do that, Frank Luntz is a longtime pollster and political strategist. Hi, Mr. Luntz. Good to have you back with us.
Thank you. Appreciate being invited.
Before I get to the FBI in Mar-a-Lago, I did want to ask you about kind of the most recent developments where Donald Trump is concerned, and that is that he was pleading the Fifth in that civil case in New York. How do you interpret that?
This has not been a good day. It has not been a good week or a good month for the president, for the ex-president. Whenever you're talking about ethics or corruption. It's always a negative for a politician, even one with a base of support as large as Donald Trump. And what we are seeing in the polling right now, and this is important, is an increase in the number of people that do not want him to run again in 2024. Now, make no mistake, he is the most popular Republican in America today. And as we saw in the last several weeks, his endorsement still matters among Republicans. But among the general electorate, there's a feeling that they want to be looking forward, not backward. And Trump's ethics issues, while perhaps driven in some measure by politics, is still an overall negative for his reputation. It's a negative for his image. And quite frankly, it continues to pull Americans apart.
Let me ask you to parse that out a little bit, because I think we've seen so many clips, for example, in the past 48 hours of various Republicans saying this makes it, for example, more likely for Donald Trump to run in 2024, or what happened is wrong. You're saying the general public doesn't necessarily take overwhelmingly the same view.
That is correct. And the Republicans are doing so because of Trump's influence. His grassroots, his support is as intense. It is smaller today than it was 90 days ago, than it was 6 months ago. And it continues to decrease, his overall reach. But among those who support him, it gets stronger and more passionate. And you can see it in the protests. You can see it in front of Mar-a-Lago. And I'm really concerned about the direction of the country right now. I'm concerned. My first reaction to the raid at Mar-a-Lago was, and I can't use the language I used, but it was, oh God, this is just going to make everything worse.
And why was that your reaction? And do you think what's happened in the ensuing hours supports that reaction?
Yes, it makes it harder for Republicans and Democrats to work with each other. It makes both sides blame each other. It makes the level of trust and confidence that we have in our institutions, it kills it. We have the same problem with the Supreme Court. We have the same problem with just about every issue right now. And I say this to every Canadian viewer, don't head in our direction. That America, again, I don't want to use the language I would normally use, but we're in trouble right now. And this just makes things even worse.
And do you anticipate, for example, if there are eventually charges pursued against the former president, or something very consequential manifests or results from this raid, that will only amplify that issue, that problem?
Yes, it's because you have to trust the institutions, and you have to trust the people who manage them. And when that trust is broken, it's very hard to restore it. And when that trust is shattered, it's impossible. I think of the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. It's weird that I would use a nursery rhyme, but it's true in American democracy. And I believe, as Richard Haas, the leader of the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, I believe what he has said. This is the single greatest threat to America right now. It is not China. It is not Russia, Ukraine. It's not Iran. It is the disintegration of trust and confidence in American government, in American institutions, and in the people who run it. And this is just making matters worse.
Based on what you see quantifiably about that erosion of trust, is there a meaningful way to counter it still?
Yeah, there is, but it's going to take leadership that stands up and says, no, enough. In a single word, enough. Enough of the partisanship, enough of the ugliness, enough of the vengeful attitudes, enough of dishonesty. We can't keep redoing the 2020 election and expect that the election in 2024 is going to be a success. We can't be seeing the worst in each other. And it is so frustrating, right? I'm doing this interview. I literally pulled off the road to do this because Canada has a greater degree of support and belief in their institutions than any other democracy across the globe. But you're facing the same kind of divisions in your country as well. Don't head in the same direction as the U.S. You've got to look at the issues that matter. And in America, affordability matters more than anything else. You have to tell people the truth and stop trying to redefine the meaning of recession, the meaning of inflation. Look people straight in the eye and tell them the truth. And third, is that you have to welcome people you disagree with. And in all three of those areas, the American democracy is failing right now, and it's just gotten worse over the last 24 hours.
Okay, let me ask you, just before I let you go, because when you were talking, I was reminded of another interview we did not too long ago about gun control and gun safety. And you had felt that your country was kind of at a critical point. You did feel like it was a bit different, and you ended up being right. Something did materialize. It didn't, fulfill every wish and fantasy of each side, but it certainly was something more than had been done in decades prior. I know you say it's possible to counter that erosion of trust. Do you think it's likely at all?
No, I don't think it. No, I want to be direct and blunt. No, I don't think it's likely. And there are some Democratic elected officials who could make a difference. There's some Republican elected officials who could make a difference, but they are, as of now, not the leaders of the party. And I'm very pessimistic about where we're going. Look, the raid at Mar-a-Lago is appropriate if there is stuff there. But if you're going to raid an ex-president, explain what you're looking for, explain why you're doing it, and then be candid with the public about what you found and what you didn't. So now you've got everyone angry. You've got the Democrats angry that the Republicans are furious about this and threatening to do the same thing if they come into power. And the Republicans are angry because they think it's all politically based. The Justice Department has a responsibility to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And they did a horrible job of explaining why they went into Mar-a-Lago and what they're looking for.
Do you think that because it's the home of a former president, it necessitates that level of transparency? And I ask because to counter, I think they would say, hey, we brought it to a judge. We had to meet a certain threshold, and those things were disclosed to that judge. We wouldn't necessarily do it for any citizen. But do you think because of the situation, it might necessitate a different approach?
Exactly. And all the questions you asked are the precise questions that the elected officials should be answering. This is a great interview because the people of Canada, the people of America, should know what this is all about. And one of the problems in democracies when you don't have legitimate accountability, but that's not just the elected officials. It's also those who are appointed, responsible for telling the truth, for explaining and upholding the laws. And that is not happening right now. So I understand the anger and the divisions, but I also have to report the truth to you that I don't know if they can be bridged at this point.
Okay, Mr. Luntz, I'll leave it there. I do appreciate you pulling off the side of the road to do this interview. Thank you for your time, as always.
Thank you. It's a privilege.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.